Lesson 22. Review. Reading. The Little Tailor.
When I was a child, I had a neighbor that I didn't know very well. Sometimes we have to grow up before we appreciate people we have lived near all our lives. I suppose there are various reasons for this. Perhaps a grown person doesn't remember being a child and doesn't know how to communicate with children. Or perhaps the child's parents have said, "Now remember, they have no children, so be very quiet when you are playing outside." Or perhaps nothing has been said at all. A child knows inside himself which grown-ups like him and which grown-ups do not really understand him. No child can tell why this is so, but each knows that this is true. Mrs. Wilmot, a neighbor of a lifetime, was such a person to me, and how happy I am that we stayed near enough to each other so that I could come to know her after I was no longer a child. She only came to my shoulder, and I am not a tall woman. She was stronger than a woman twice her size. Her house and the yard in which it stood were always completely clean. I always thought that both she and the house must have just had a bath and put on clean clothes. Her husband, only a little taller than she, had died many years before I grew up. He was a very fine tailor. When you examined the men's clothes he made, you could not find anything but the finest work. When he was very busy at his shop, his wife did her housework and then went downtown to help him. And they still had time for their garden, their church, and for visiting sick people. At the age of 70, Mrs. Wilmot decided she would like to go downtown and work again. She got a job making alterations in a men's clothing store. She worked quietly upstairs, altering trousers, lengthening sleeves, shortening sleeves. It sounds like a dull way to spend the day, but the salesmen loved her. They teased her. They laughed with her. They took care of her. They appreciated her. She made that store a better place to work because they all cared about her. One time I wanted a suit made for myself. I had some good wool material, and I wanted someone to make it who really knew how to sew. Ah, I thought, my old friend Mrs. Wilmot is the only person who can make this suit just the way I want it. When I explained how much I wanted the perfect suit, and how I knew that only she could sew well enough to make it for me, she thanked me. Then she looked up at me and said very nicely but very definitely, "But my dear, I'm a man's tailor. Making clothes for men is one thing. Making clothes for women is another. No one can do both things well." I sew so little I do not even know if this is true, but I believed her that day, and if you could have seen her face, you would have believed her too.
Now answer these questions about the reading.
1. Why didn't I know Mrs. Wilmot very well when I was a child?
B. Mrs. Wilmot didn't get along with children well.
Two, what did her house and yard look like?
B. Always clean and in order.
Three, did Mrs. Wilmot ever work with her husband?
C. Yes, when the shop was busy.
4, why was the store where she altered clothing a better place because of her?
A. Because everyone cared about her.
5, why didn't she make my suit?
B. She only knew how to make men's clothing.
6, why did I believe her reason?
C. Because she looked like she knew what she was talking about.
Review of grammar. 1. Past conditional, if clauses of unreality. Respond to the following sentences with an if clause of unreality. Follow the models. Listen.
A,
1. Jim didn't tease Helen. Cry.
If he had teased her, she would have cried.
if he had teased her, she would have cried.
If he had teased her, she would have cried.
Now you do the exercise.
1. Jim didn't tease Helen. Cry.
If he had teased her, she would have cried.
2. The tailor didn't alter the suit. Fit.
If he had altered it, it would have fit.
3. Peter didn't put the tomatoes in the sun. Ripen.
If he had put them there, they would have ripened.
4. Linda didn't forget to tie the end of the thread. Unravel.
If she had forgotten to tie it, it would have unraveled.
5. The company didn't keep advertising every week. Prosper.
If they had kept advertising every week, they would have prospered.
B. Listen.
1. George put the fruit in the refrigerator and it kept overnight.
If he hadn't put it in the refrigerator, it wouldn't have kept overnight.
If he hadn't put it in the refrigerator, it wouldn't have kept overnight.
If he hadn't put it in the refrigerator, it wouldn't have kept overnight.
Now you do the exercise.
1. George put the fruit in the refrigerator and it kept overnight.
If he hadn't put it in the refrigerator, it wouldn't have kept overnight.
2. Mrs. Dodge washed the sweater in hot water and it shrank.
If she hadn't washed it in hot water, it wouldn't have shrunk.
3. The city built a new school and they raised the taxes.
If they hadn't built a new school, they wouldn't have raised the taxes.
4. My husband sharpened the knife, and it was easy to cut the ham.
If he hadn't sharpened it, it wouldn't have been easy to cut it.
5. Cedarsville widened the road and the traffic could move faster.
If they hadn't widened it, the traffic couldn't have moved faster.
2. Hope and wish. It plus adjective plus infinitive with subject. Respond to the sentences with, "Oh, good," or "Oh, too bad," and the sentence with hope or wish and the adjective in parentheses. Follow the models. Listen.
1. We're going to try to adopt an orphan. Easy.
Oh, good. I hope it's easy for you to adopt one.
2. Clarence can't see the performers very well. Hard.
Oh, too bad. I wish it weren't hard for him to see them. Now do the exercise.
1. We're going to try to adopt an orphan. Easy.
Oh, good. I hope it's easy for you to adopt one.
2. Clarence can't see the performers very well. Hard.
Oh, too bad. I wish it weren't hard for him to see them.
3. We're having trouble meeting our expenses. Easy.
Oh, too bad. I wish it were easy for you to meet them.
4. I'm trying to get Miss Baxter to show us her photograph album. Possible.
Oh, good. I hope it's possible for you to get her to show it to you.
5. They have to abandon their homes because of the danger. Necessary.
Oh, too bad. I wish it weren't necessary for them to abandon them.
6. Adrian won't get to the wedding because he lives too far away. Possible.
Oh, too bad. I wish it were possible for him to get to it.
7. I'm afraid that I can never keep their children's names straight. Hard.
Oh, too bad. I wish it weren't hard for you to keep them straight.
8. She's spending a lot of time drawing a family tree. Useful.
Oh, good. I hope it's useful for her to draw one. 3. Modal perfect verbs. Complete the sentences by filling in one of the modal auxiliary verbs in parentheses.
1. Should, must.
This doesn't look like the right street. We must have gotten on the wrong bus. We should have checked first.
2. May, will.
Use this address next time. You may have heard that we will have moved by August 1st.
3. Might, should.
Adrian doesn't have his umbrella. He might have left it on the bus. He should have been more careful.
4. Must, could.
I didn't know you were hot. You could have taken off your coat and tie. You must have been very uncomfortable. 5. Would, ought to.
The wedding reception was wonderful. You ought to have gone. You would have enjoyed it.
Complete the sentences by filling in the past participle of one of the verbs on this list.
Beat, forget, hide, knit, shrink, spin, steal, weave.
1. Aunt Catherine could have knitted socks for the baby.
2. This shirt used to fit, but it must have shrunk in the wash.
3. The Dodges said they'd come. They must have forgotten.
4. We had a better team. We should have beaten them.
5. If you had hidden your book, maybe they wouldn't have stolen it.
6. Those people might have spun wool by hand and woven their cloth at home.
4. Nouns modified by infinitives. Answer the questions with a noun modified by an infinitive. Use the cued words. Follow the models. Listen.
1. Will Mrs. Barnes play with the children now? Some ironing, do.
No, she has some ironing to do.
No, she has some ironing to do.
No, she has some ironing to do.
2. Will Aunt Catherine go shopping now? Some shirts, iron.
No, she has some shirts to iron.
No, she has some shirts to iron.
No, she has some shirts to iron.
Now you do the exercise.
1. Will Mrs. Barnes play with the children now? Some ironing, do.
No, she has some ironing to do.
2. Will Aunt Catherine go shopping now? Some shirts, iron.
No, she has some shirts to iron.
3. Will she go shopping after that? A sweater, knit.
No, she has a sweater to knit.
4. Are you going to work in the garden today? Some drapes, make.
No, I have some drapes to make.
5. Is the tailor finished for today? One more suit coat, alter.
No, he has one more suit coat to alter.
6. Can these men go into town tonight? The bridge. Guard.
No, they have the bridge to guard.
7. Have you got your family tree finished? My mother's ancestors. Trace.
No, I have my mother's ancestors to trace.
8. Are the knives ready? 3 more. Sharpen.
No, I have 3 more to sharpen.
Review of vocabulary. 1. Nouns. Choose the word which answers the question.
1. Which is not an occupation? Merchant, plumber, princess, tailor.
Princess.
2. Which is not an article of clothing? Heel, jeans, robe, slipper.
Heel.
3. Which is not found at a wedding ceremony? Bridesmaid, groom, honeymoon, ring.
Honeymoon.
4. Which is not a relative? Cousin, great-grandfather, orphan, stepdaughter.
Orphan.
5. Which is not a kind of fiber? Cotton, silk, wool, yarn.
Yarn.
6. Which is not a natural fiber? Linen, nylon, silk, wool.
Nylon.
7. Which are not worn on the feet? Boots, jackets, moccasins, slippers.
Jackets.
2. Negative prefixes. Complete the words by filling in one of the negative prefixes, dis, in, im, miss, non, un, and then repeat the sentence.
1. After the sleeve begins to unravel, there's not much you can do about it.
2. I'm sorry to say that he misinformed me about the nature of the case.
3. The disappearance of the captain was a serious matter.
4. We need a non-absorbent paper to put in the bottom of the wastebasket.
5. It's unbelievable that all the water is gone.
6. Mr. Chang hasn't mismanaged the airline, but the man before him did.
7. Don't you know that it's nearly impossible to ruin this fabric?
8. Every mailman dislikes unfriendly dogs. 3. Adjective suffixes. Complete the adjectives by filling in one of the endings able, al, ful, ive, and then repeat the sentence.
1. I don't like to get into political discussions with my roommate.
2. Those robes are only used on ceremonial occasions.
3. Mr. Abbott is a very agreeable and helpful clerk.
4. Mr. Barnes made several constructive and practical suggestions at last night's meeting.
5. It's unbelievable that the fire was accidental.
6. They started using artificial silk because of the cost of natural silk.
7. Don't you think it's wasteful to use disposable napkins all the time?
8. The architect planned a house that was both functional and beautiful.
4. ing and ed, en, noun modifiers. Complete the adjectives and noun modifiers by filling in the ending ing or ed, en.
1. My aged parents are still living on their farm in Ohio.
2. She got a charming illustrated book about birds for Janet.
3. Let Peter Scott do the photography. He's both talented and willing.
4. The astonishing thing is that people bought the spoiled food.
5. It's a tiring job, but it's not boring at all.
6. Several puzzled students had embarrassing questions to ask.
7. An annoying sound came from behind the closed door.
8. They threw out the broken rocking chair to make room for the promised easy chair.
End of Lesson 22.